This time on Captain Cass's laboratory, we are going to work on another World's Fair Grand Ferris Wheel from Mr. Christmas. This one was sent in also with an envelope that has a gear, which may be the issue right there, of what's causing the problem. But I was told it's not spinning, so let's find out. I haven't turned it on. I did plug it in though. So, on. I hear the music. Yeah, she just freewheels. Then it gets caught. And then it gets caught. When they get caught like this, when they stop, see how it stops violently and bounces back? That's usually a split in the gear that opens, and what's happening is you're hitting that split, which ricochets it in the other direction. So that's pretty indicative on the Ferris wheels of what can cause, the cause is a broken gear. One way to diagnose it is to gently freewheel it until it stops, and then go back and see if it does the same. Because technically the Ferris wheel shouldn't freewheel at all. You should only have like that much movement. The way they're made. So, if you remember from the last big Ferris wheel, it's not the easiest to disassemble, but it can be taken apart. Step one, remove the power. The shaft that drives it is in this arm right here. So if you're looking at it on the back, it's the left arm. You got screws all in this hub, and you got screws here, and then there's some screws down here behind the fence. You got to take the bottom off, remove all the screws to lift this arm assembly out. You can inspect this top gear, which that is the top gear, by just taking apart this back piece and flexing it a little bit, since you can't get to these bottom screws easily. So that's probably where we're going to start, just to make sure, because if it's the bottom gear, which is a tapered gear, we have to order the right gear. So I'm going to start taking out all the screws here in the center. And I'm going to get a little magnet there to hold the screws. I'm not a big Ferris wheel guy, but I will have to say the Mr. Christmas Ferris wheels are pretty nice, especially this one. Even I think the reason is because it's gold in color, and then you have the colored cars. It kind of makes it stand out. I think it's just an aesthetics thing. Plus it has all little people around it. So, but Ferris wheels are generally one of the harder ones to disassemble, because it seems like every single style Ferris wheel out there is built slightly different, and even Mr. Christmas has multiple versions of assembly and disassembly. And the screw in the very center of the hub is much longer, and it's a machine screw. You can see it's longer than these other guys. And you might see the separation just by taking those screws out. But if you take out the next four, which are the ones in the middle of the arms, you can actually get enough flex on the plastic. And I'm not talking bend this thing back until you hear it starting to crack. Just enough where you can see the gear. The gear is up here. The gear that's in that envelope. So we are going to take a look. Alright, just two more screws. Yes, this top gear is broken. So it's hard to see if I showed it with the camera because the angle and the lighting, but the gear follows this shaft, and there's this pressed on at the top, pressed on at the bottom. Looking straight in, I can see the split because it's actually pointing out, because the main drive gear that turns this hub is right here. You might be able to see the white, and the teeth point in. The gear is shaped like this, and then this drive gear sits like so in relationship. It's a worm and ring gear setup. So to fix it properly, we need to take these screws out of the bottom, which my screwdriver doesn't fit through the slots. So to do that, you have to take the bottom off and unscrew these legs. Some cases you can unscrew the back legs and get enough tip on just the front legs to reach a screwdriver in at an angle. Other times you have to remove the whole assembly, but in doing so you got to be careful because there is a gearbox attached on the bottom, as well as there's wires on this side that go up to make everything light up. So, I'm going to push the hub back in here, and we're going to set this thing down on its back, like so. And then on the bottom, all the screws are underneath the rubber feet. So you got to pop out all the rubber feet. I have a small blade screwdriver here that the tip is broke, so it's kind of like a small spike. And I just pop them out. I usually keep the sticky sides up so they don't catch any debris from my bench. You can put them back in with hot glue. I wouldn't recommend super glue because you probably want to take them out in the future, since underneath the bottom of this there's two belts, and you might have to replace them over time. Pop out the 6 screws. What I'm trying to do is put some pressure because they're never been out, so they're tight. If you just try and push on it, you can flex the pan or flex the unit. This bottom center one doesn't want to come out. There we go. These on the outside so they don't get mixed up on the back. There we go. All right, and then there's your speaker, 8 ohm, 0.5 watts. You got your main circuit board. You got these two little figures that stand right here in the stairwells. Make sure you don't snap the two ladies off. You got your song change button, your volume knob, your type of music, your on-off, which is right here actually, your power, and the other one I believe is, oh, it's the last guy. Oh, your light show, steady or flash. So. All right, on the bottom, if you take a gander, the wires right here with my thumb go up that other back leg, And then the gearbox right there with the motor is what controls the drive shaft that goes up to the hub up the other leg. So to do this, you have to take the gearbox out so you can get to the mounting hardware or the mounting screws for the legs. If you take out the bottom screws, if you looked at it, if you went back and paused the picture when I was holding it, there's a set of smaller screws on the top layer and then bigger screws on the bottom layer. You just remove the bigger screws. You should be able to remove the gearbox as one assembly without losing all your gears. Total of 3 screws that hold the whole gearbox assembly in. When you have it laying on the back, there's 2 on the bottom, 1 on the top. There we go. And then here's the gearbox assembly with one of the drive belts, which is right here. Actually, this one might only have 1. So it's got a clear belt, opaque-ish. I'm just going to quickly examine the gears and make sure that none of these guys are broke, because this also has a 14 tooth right here, and 14 tooth gears are also common for cracking. Now I'm just going to check the big gear. All I'm doing is rotating the pulley with my thumb and looking at all the spacing on the 2 gears. On this side there's 3. Anytime you take them apart, I always recommend checking all your gears, check your lubrication, check the teeth, see if you see anything funny. If it's starting to wear funny, you might have a worn out armature hole, which in some cases you can fix it. Other cases it's a little harder, but you usually can. Now I'm going to take out the second gearbox so I can get to the screws. And I'll show you the pieces as I pull them out. But the second gearbox has 2 layers. One layer is orange, one layer is white. The orange layer is the top layer, which has the transfer from this gear right here, the one next to the pulley. Then that goes through a couple of gears to a worm gear, which then transfers it up the shaft into the hub, which then spins the Ferris wheel. These things are very complex and interesting all at the same time. So here's the orange piece, and there is the worm transfer gear. It's a flat gear with a worm gear on top of it. It almost looks like it's 2 gears glued together, but it should be one solid cast gear. That transfers the lateral motion to angled motion that go up the shaft. So that's the bottom part of the gear transfer box. The second part, which is white, you shouldn't have to remove, but you will have to remove this gear cluster with the spring. You can see. Try and show it to you closer. Just pull it straight out, and you can see all the lubrication that's stuck inside. Set it down. Then you have a standard idler gear sitting next to it. The nosed part goes in or up towards the Ferris wheel. And I'm just going to set this right there. This gives you access to the 1 screw on this side and the 2 screws over here, which are already accessible, but that way you can unscrew the arms. You have to take this gearbox out to get that 1 screw. So, here we go. I'm going to take out the 1 screw on this side. And probably should have got a bigger magnet so it wouldn't mix all these up. But just try and keep them separated and organized as you see fit. because they are different lengths, diameters, pitches, and types of screws. And this Ferris wheel specifically has something like 6 or 7 different screws. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 screws. All these are the same. Those are different. Those are bigger. Those are really small flats. So yeah, just try and keep your screws organized. Another way of doing it versus using a magnet is you can actually take a piece of blue painter's tape, or green if you prefer, and tape it to your work area with the adhesive part sticking up, so kind of curl the ends, and then stick your screws onto the tape, so that way you can not worry about them going anywhere. And you can put another piece of tape directly below it, sticky side down, where you can write screws from arms, screws from motor, screws from base, screws from gearbox. So you remember which screws went where, so you don't mix them. And just to do this correctly and not risking any damage, I am going to pull out the screws for the upper 2 arms, just so I can actually get a little bit more slack on it and not worry about potentially flexing or cracking anything, just because these things are older. It's only 4 more screws you have to remove. Like that. Now, I need to flip this thing upside down, so I'm going to set the gearbox in there, and then rotate this completely over, carefully. And now the arms have come free, but you still have the wires. There's 3 wires. So, but that gives you access to the bottom 2 screws on this arm and the bottom 2 screws on the other arm. And I apologize if you hear any interruptions or noises. We're having some work done. It's been cold here in Arizona, and we lost a pipe in the wall, so. All right. So, screws are now loose. Let's see. Just pull them out. Now we just need to pop the bottom out. These arms are pressed really good, especially this side, because it has a positive pressure point to keep the shaft straight. So I'm trying to put a little pressure on the inside to see if I can pop it free. Or the other option is right at the base of this gear. That's probably the easiest. Just pop it out. Take it out, just set it off to the side. You can't go far because there's a wire that holds it in place. But now you can remove the offending shaft. The bottom gear looks good, and the top gear is cracked. Another way is grab, and if you can turn one side and the other side stays still, it's because it broke. These gears are pressed on. And this is the broken gear. Slid right off. There's the knurling you might be able to see, to press the new gear on. Now, the place that carries this is in Florida. It's happyholidayparts.com. Sorry, happyholidayparts.com. Trying to get the baggie. There's his card. Hopefully you can see it with not too much glare from the light. There you go. I'll put his information in the thing below, the description. Sorry. He uses really thick bags and some heavy-duty staples. Wow. But this gear is not cheap. You can buy a whole bunch of random gears online for a lot less than what this little fella costs. But unfortunately, you need this exact gear to make this work. So, what I normally do to press it in is I'll start it on a solid surface, and then press really hard. And then now I can't spin them because it cuts its own groove when you push it in. It's pretty simple. Sometimes you might have to smack them in so it forces the cut through. And something else I'll do is first I'm going to wipe the top of this off because I got oil on it and grease. Is if you clean the top. Oh my God. The gear he sent's broke. That's nuts. Yeah, we're going to have to stop and have to go get a new gear because this one's actually already cracked. That's crazy. I've never had one delivered from him broken. So this is the one I just pressed on. Oops, lost my balance. Let me turn off the excess light. See the crack? Yeah, that's bad. So, shoot. Let me see what I have. I think I might have a spare of my own, but I'm going to have to call Victor about it. I got a couple. Yeah, it's the right one. So this gear, I don't have this gear. I'm pressing hard and it's not going in, so I'm going to have to tap it in. You can also heat it up, which actually I'll probably do that just to make it safer. But what I was about to say is on the top of them, you can put a very small dab of super glue, and that'll help prevent the gear from spinning on its shaft. So, I'm going to warm up the end of this a little bit and try and press it on. Turn on the edge. Better. It's right there. Okay. That's how it normally should be. You shouldn't be able to put it on so easy. Sometimes you can. I have had easy ones. Smacky thing and gently tap it in. Almost. Almost all the way on. Problem with these rubber mats is they absorb shock. There we go. She's all the way flush now. So, you just wipe it off. I use my shirt because it's here. And then, if you're concerned about it spinning, you can take a dollop of either the yellow cap with a brush or the blue cap that you can drop. Put a very small drop on there and make sure it is completely hardened before you stick it inside here. If you're concerned about it slipping. I'm not concerned about it slipping because these things are a tight fit. That's hence the reason I had to beat it in with a hammer or a smacky thing. Then you just stick this end under the main gear, this big guy right there. Make sure the teeth are in, and then push this down and make sure that your bushings are on either side of where they need to go. The white bushing up here goes against the first set of guides. The bottom one goes on the outside of the base. And then you put your piece together like so, like that. And then I usually push in the gear side first because it has that positive pressure point which helps hold everything together. And then get the other base in and then work my way up to the top. Except I can't see the top. There we go. Because the armature fits inside here, which is where that screw goes. Carefully push everything together. You're probably going to have to use the screws to hold it because what's happening is it's laying on its hub and it's pushing the other side straight up. So I'm going to put these bottom screws in, then get the 4 feet remounted, and then stand it up so I can push and realign this center hub. And last one for the base. Alright, and when you stick the bottom back on, because you have a shaft with a gear and you have 2 arms that have wires in them, you got to make sure you feed it all so it doesn't pinch anything. So I'm going to do the top one first. And make sure I didn't pinch any of the wires. And bottom one has a yellow and a red wire, which is actually the front of the Ferris wheel, so it makes the lights glow on the front. And the top one's a black wire. few things around here. Because it's so heavy, it keeps pulling itself back out, so I'm going to get a screw set. The Ferris wheel is metal and the base is plastic, and the weight of the metal pulling down keeps popping it out of its holes. So get your screws set on like I did, and then make sure that your yellow and red wire aren't pinched and your black wire is not pinched, and then get your arms set in their holes. See if I can get the first one here. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to elevate this to relieve some of the stress. Just carefully set it. That way the arms and the base are almost the same height, so it doesn't keep pulling it out for me. Because an extra set of hands would be great, but it doesn't always work. I'm just sticking one screw in each foot just to hold it in place so it stops popping out on me, and then I'll put in the others. A magnetic screwdriver does come in handy. Last one, which I'm having a hard time seeing, but there we go. Alright, so I got one in each at the moment. Now, the one that the gearbox goes over only has one screw. And the gearbox is now on the top, up here. As I rotated this, as you might remember. So I am going to put the gearbox back in and reassemble these gears to make sure they all mesh where they're supposed to. And it's the same way you pulled them out that you put them back in. It's not really difficult. It's the holes that don't have screws. There we go. And then the orange cover. It is kind of slick because this stuff is lubricated. Little patience. What I was doing with turning the Ferris wheel itself was trying to get this bottom gear to line up with this tapered gear. There we go. Put in the other screws right now for the other legs. Now all the arm screws are put in. I'm not going to put the big gearbox in at the moment. I want to try and get the this armature set back into its hole and get these screws put back in. There we go. That. So the axle is now centered and screwed in, and now I'm just going to put a couple around the star to keep the plastic pushed in. Since there's no positive clip on the top, the positive clips are only on the bottom. And then we'll go back to working underneath. This way it keeps it from wobbling and shifting. You can actually do them all if you want, just so you don't miss any screws. Might just do that. This is all the screws in the star. These last screws in here are for the legs. There's just a total of 4. So we're going to get those in real fast. Give me just a second here. Alright, sorry about that slight interruption there. All I did was set it back down on its side so you can see the bottom. So that's the orange gearbox I was talking about. If I rotate the Ferris wheel, you can see that gear moving. But once you hook this gearbox up to it, it's not going to spin anymore. So, I wanted you to see, when I was fiddling in here a moment ago, I was trying to line up all the teeth so all the teeth mesh. And you can rotate this, or you can try and rotate the gear in here, but you want to make sure all your teeth mesh so you don't break them. The whole point is to fix the unit, not to make it worse. And then I'm trying to put this one in, and it doesn't line up. So if I just do this a little bit, and then it drops in. So basically, it's just the two higher parts of the gear are touching each other. Remember, this is only held in with 3 screws, and all 3 screws go into the inset boss areas. So once you line them up, and there's the first one. Yeah, see, now the Ferris wheel doesn't want to turn because it's fighting the other gearbox. And that's what we want to look for. That lets me know that it's lined up, and that lets me know that it's not slipping on the shaft. Don't force it because you're going to break a gear. Best case scenario is it just slips on itself, but most likely you're going to break a gear, or you're going to break multiple gears. Just to make it a hair easier, I'm going to tip this thing on its end so I can get to this last bottom screw, because I can't see it. Apparently I'm not lined up on my teeth. And there we go. Seems like every flashlight I have in here is dead, but you know what? Cell phone works pretty good. So what happened was, is when I was moving it, the screw wasn't in far enough, and it popped back out. So now I'm trying to realign my teeth like that. What I was doing is, instead of rotating the Ferris wheel, I was rotating the gearbox with that big gear that stuck out until it lined up, and then you heard it drop into place if you heard the click. Now I can put that screw in all the way. Actually, all 3 screws in all the way. So, but yeah, you just don't want to force it and just jam it in there. You want to try and rotate it and let it glide in, and they'll usually pop in pretty easy for you. So, all right, so all the screws that should be are in. All the screws in the back are in. Before I put the screws in the bottom, let's test it out. In case you're wanting the power, this is 9 volts DC. Mr. Christmas is good about having AC parts, so I figured I'd let you know. It's plugged in. There we go. Let's turn off some lights so you can see this. it is with solid lights. And then if I flip the switch that says light show, whoops, that's the power switch. And that's the light show. So just like a real Ferris wheel in real life. Pretty cool. And so I'm not a big Ferris wheel person, but this one's pretty neat. And it's really bright. Speaker sounds great. It's not crackly or anything. It didn't look bad. So let's give it some juice back, and so it rotates the songs. Go to Christmas only. Beautiful. So she is working like she is supposed to. Now we just got to pop the screws in the bottom. And one last thing about this is, when I mentioned you can use hot glue on the bottom feet, there's one other thing you can use that I totally forgot. Oh, let's unplug this thing again. You can use rubber contact cement. I am out of it. That's why I don't use it, because I only use it every once in a while and it always gets hard before I can actually finish the container. But you can actually use rubber contact cement to put the rubber feet back on, or you can use hot glue. Either one. Don't use a lot of it. Use it all sparingly, because if you get the cross hatching for the cross tip or Phillips screwdriver clogged, you can't get the screwdriver in there. And because these are recessed, they're really hard to clean out. So you can use hot glue or yeah, rubber contact cement is what I would recommend. I have heard of white glue or Elmer's white glue working too. I don't use it for that, but I just stick with hot glue because I have lots of glue sticks. So, but anyway, that concludes this pretty much straight through, except for one small interruption. Like I said, I have workers at the house, and I had to stop to get information on the status, since one of the reasons you don't see my Limax room right now is because my Limax room is full of stuff stacked to the ceiling, since we had one of the bedrooms have a pipe burst in the wall, and pretty much had to put everything in that bedroom everywhere it could fit. So it's a long process. They're telling me because of the supply chain issue, I might get the room finished by July, which is always nice. I went a month without water, and now I'm going to go several months without having access to all the rooms in my house. So that's one of the reasons why the videos have slowed down a little bit as far as getting them out as fast. It's because I'm dealing with a lot of noise and construction, because I had to punch a hole from the outside of the house and punch a hole from the inside of the house and completely remove everything in the room due to the age of the house. They have to do everything with hazmat suits. So, but anyway, yeah, it's a lot of fun. But as time permits, I am going to try and keep getting these done. I have a few more that are almost finished. One of them is an Nesco music box, which is the hardest thing I've ever worked on. It has taken me literal weeks to figure out how to assemble this thing and disassemble this thing. But it's almost done. I finally figured it out, or 90% of it. So hopefully soon, in the next few weeks, we'll have a little bit more. Plus, we're going to have another giveaway. Kind of a pre-new drop for the Christmas and Halloween lines of both Limax and Department 56. They're not the new stuff. I don't get that stuff in advance. I'm not that special. But We do have some more stuff that has been donated to us that is new in package from both Department 56 Christmas line and Spooky Town from the Lemax Spooky Town line that we're talking about giving away in March. So, at least giving away in March, which means the contest will be probably in the next couple of weeks, and then it'll go through the middle or end of March. We're still working on it. So, but anyhow, now the base is screwed on. And she works, so now I just need to get my hot glue gun, get them feet put back on, repackage this and get it shipped back to its owner, and then make a phone call over to Mr. Christmas Parts Guy and get that gear replaced, because I just used one out of my stock. So, and just to give you an idea, they're $20 a gear. So if you have Mr. Christmas, they're very expensive to fix, but they're usually a higher quality too. And they're plastic, because I know that's a big controversy in a lot of the miniature house stuff. Porcelain's better than plastic, and resin's better than both of them, or vice versa. So it's one of those things where it's a personal preference. I prefer the plastic on the repair side. It's a little bit more forgiving. If you drop the plastic, it may crack. You can glue it. You drop the porcelain, you have dust. The resin's the same way. It's pretty strong, but it's a little harder to dismantle. So it's all preference stuff. But Mr. Christmas parts are not cheap. So if you have a Mr. Christmas display, it's one of those that when it breaks, it's going to cost you some money to get the repair parts, because they're proprietary parts. But Mr. Christmas is known for a little bit better quality. It's all, again, preference. To me, they're all basically the same as far as the majority of the quality. Everybody is competing with each other, and I think that's increasing the quality, as a personal opinion. But that's, again, up to you as the purchaser versus me as the repairer. So, anyhow, thank you for watching. I'm going to get my hot glue gun out, put a glue stick in it, and get this thing set, and then get those feet glued in, get this thing packaged and shipped back to its owner. Till the next one, have a good one.